Hi, it's Mitch from PickDawgz.com. It's Saturday, June 15th, 2024. We're going to do today's Major League Baseball first 5 innings picks for all the 15 games that are on the card today. No other action except for Major League Baseball. Of course, when there are first halves, we'll be covering those as well. But for Major League Baseball today, just the 15 games. Of course, we also cover today in history, and today in 1951, Joe Louis, the Brown Bomber, recorded his final knockout of his big-time heavyweight boxing career. But of course, we're here to knock out the books like we do every single day here at PickDawgz. Let's just get it started, get right into today's action. For our first game of the day, we head to Minnesota where the Twins are hosting the A's. It's Bailey Ober on the mound for the Twins and Joe Estes on the mound for the A's. Estes, hasn't pitched poorly, 4.78 ERA for the season, Ober at 5.13, but when you look at their last 3 starts, Ober continues to get lit up at 7.98, while Estes at a respectable 2.20. The A's certainly not a good hitting team, hitting righties at just 193 over their last 10 games, while the Twins check in at 264 versus righties. But when you go out towards the entire body of work for the season, they're a lot closer than this, with the Twins at 226 for the season versus right-handed pitching, while the A's at 218. So both these teams, the Twins up significantly, the A's down significantly. And, the A's have not played well in Minnesota. But the thing is, I think we do have a pitching mismatch here. And while that might not play out for the entire game, I think it at least plays out for the first 5. I'll take the A's, nice value for the first 5 innings. For our next game, we head to Wrigley Field in Chicago where the Cubs are hosting the Cardinals. Plant on the mound for the Cards. That means it's a bullpen game, while Shota Imanaga on the mound for the Cubs. Imanaga bounced back last game from 2 not-so-great starts, but still a 5.87 ERA over his last 3 starts. That compares to a 1.96 ERA that he sports for the season. Meanwhile, Plant 4.88 and 4.88 for the season, 3.86 over his last 3 starts. But, the thing is, like I said, he's not going to go deep into this game, and this is generally going to be a bullpen game. We look at the way the Cardinals are hitting lefties, and it's at 286, while the Cubs hitting righties at just 218, and expect the Cardinals to bring out a bunch of them for this game. We saw in Friday's action, the Cubs just couldn't even get a run on the board. I don't know if they don't get any runs in this game, but I don't like their chances. And I'm going to take the Cardinals first 5. That's going to be my pick for this game. For our next game, we head to Toronto where the Blue Jays are taking on the Guardians. The Guardians this year have been a team that just seemed to find a way, while the Blue Jays a team that just doesn't seem to find a way. But if the Blue Jays are going to have a chance, I think, facing Carlos Carrasco could be one of those opportunities that they have. With the Guardians 19-7 straight up in their last 26 games, this team is running away quietly with the American League Central. But Carlos Carrasco has really not been a great contributor to that effort. 5.50 ERA in the season and 5.93 over his last 3 starts. We look at the way these teams are hitting, and the Blue Jays, they're hitting righties at 225 over their last 10 games and 231 for the season. Meanwhile, the Guardians are hitting 258 versus righties and 223 versus lefties. And, the thing is that you have to believe that the Blue Jays will have a chance to hammer the baseball against Carrasco. The problem is that we rarely see the Jays take advantage of these opportunities. I'm going to roll with the Guardians. They're just the better team, and that's my pick for the first 5. For our next game, we head to Baltimore where the Orioles are taking on the Phillies. We've got Grayson Rodriguez on the mound for the O's and Taijuan Walker on the mound for the Phillies. Walker, despite his, rough start to the season, he really hasn't been all that terrible when it comes to wins and losses. But what starting pitcher wins losses means little. It's all the other opportunities that don't hit those wins and loss columns. Meanwhile, Grayson Rodriguez, it continues to improve, and it's not like you see him blow up. When we talk about improving, he's just steadily improving. He's a mid-3 ERA pitcher, 3.27 for the season, 3.44 over his last 3 starts, while Walker 5.40 and 5.94. I just think that with the way Walker's pitching and you have the way the Orioles are hitting, and that is hitting righties at 259 over their last 10 games, which is better than the Phillies are, 243 over their last 10. Plus with the big advantage, I think this one's all Orioles for the first 5. For our next game, we head to Washington where the Nationals face the Marlins. This has traditionally been a series where the Marlins have really had their way with the Nationals, but it didn't look that way on Friday night. DJ Hurst gets the ball here for the Nationals. Certainly, considered one of their higher prospects up against Trevor Rogers for the Marlins, who we've seen look actually pretty decent at times. After, since he's won that Rookie of the Year, he has been on a lot of shaky ground. Hurst comes in with a 6.48 ERA on the season, 6.48 for his last 3 starts since he hasn't made 3 starts yet. And Trevor Rogers at 5.37 for the season, but 3.31 in his last 3 starts in this battle of lefties. Look at the way these teams are hitting lefties, and the Marlins hit lefties significantly better than the Nationals do. 234 to 191 over their last 10 games, even though they're even versus left-handed pitching over the course of the season. I tell you, I don't love what we see from Rogers a lot of the time, but I don't like at all what we've seen from Hurst. I'm going to roll with the Marlins in the first 5. For our next game, we head to San Francisco where the Giants are taking on the Angels. Sandoval on the mound for the Angels, and Keaton Winn gets the ball for the Giants. The Giants continue to claw their way back into things and closer to 500, while the Angels just look to be done for the season already at this point. Sandoval, 5.23 ERA on the season and 4.08 in his last 3 starts, but Winn has been lit up like crazy for the Giants, so neither of these pitchers really have much to offer as far as helping out their team. The Giants are hitting lefties though at 310 over their last 10 games, even though they're hitting just 202 versus righties. But for the season, they're still hitting 257 versus lefties. So facing a lefty like Sandoval at home is certainly a big advantage here for the Giants. But of course, anyone facing Winn seems to have been an advantage for them, as the Angels hitting just 226 versus righties, 239 versus lefties. I just don't like the way the Angels are playing, and the Giants have dominated, winning the 12 of the last 17 meetings. I'm going to go Giants first 5. For our next game, we head to Citi Field in New York where the Mets are hosting the Padres. These teams had to sit out a bit of a rain delay on Friday night, and now they meet in an afternoon contest on Saturday. It's Jose Quintana on the mound for the Mets and Adam Mazur on the mound for the Padres. Mazur looked great in his first start. He came in very heralded, and looked great out on the field. And then in his second start, he got absolutely crushed. It was a welcome to the major leagues type thing, which ballooned his ERA all the way up to 9. Quintana, at this point, beyond the crafty veteran phase, because he is a veteran, but he has looked anything but crafty. He's got a 5.29 ERA on the season, 5.93 ERA over his last 3 starts. Look at the way these teams are hitting the baseball, and the Padres are crushing righties, but hitting just 237 versus lefties. The Mets crushing lefties, but hitting just 213 against righties. Just think the Padres are the better team. I think Mazur bounces back from the bad start. I'll take the Padres in the first 5. For our next game, we go to Houston where the Astros are taking on the Tigers. It's Justin Verlander on the bump for the Astros and Jack Flaherty on the mound for the Tigers. Flaherty's been decent this season, a guy that really was bounced around, after he kind of fizzled out in St. Louis with the Cardinals, and then he went to the Orioles, who really didn't want any part of him. And here he is in Detroit, where he's got a 3.22 ERA on the season, but 1.50 in his last 3 starts. He's also among the majors leaders in strikeouts. Meanwhile, Justin Verlander, traditionally in his career, has been a slow starter. He has had some good starts. Not every single season does he start slow, but generally he does, and he's got a 3.95 ERA, but 4.76 over his last 10 games. With a battle of right-handers going here, the Astros are hitting righties significantly better at 2.44, while the Tigers at just 1.99. I think both these teams are going to struggle at the plate in this game, and I think the under is the play for the first 5 innings. For our next game, we head to Atlanta, where the Braves are hosting the Tampa Bay Rays. The Rays had chances in the first inning against Chris Sale and only scratched one run across the board, even though they had second and third with nobody out and one run already across the plate. They paid the price for that in the bottom of the first and were basically trying to dig themselves out of a hole the entire rest of the game. So we'll see if the Rays can get out of the gate a little faster in this one with Ryan Pepio, who's got a 4.17 ERA and 4.58 over his last 3 starts. When we look at Charlie Morton, who gets the start for the Braves, a notoriously slow starter, he's got an ERA of 4.12 and 6.48 over his last 3 starts. Neither of these teams are hitting right-handed pitching particularly well, with the Rays at 194 over their last 10 and the Braves at 175. And over the course of the season, their numbers really aren't much better than that. I just have to say, I think that the Rays still have a little bit of an edge here. I'll take them in the first 5. Go to Milwaukee, where the Brewers are taking on the Cincinnati Reds. Bryce Wilson gets the ball for the Brew Crew up against Andrew Abbott for the Reds. Neither of these pitchers have been in good form in their recent starts, even though they pitched okay over the course of the season. Abbott has a 3.28 ERA, but that looks like 5.29 over his last 3 starts, while Wilson, 4.19, 8.31 over his last 3 starts. Both these pitchers just seem to find a lot of the plate. The Brewers traditionally have played the Reds really well, and they played them even better in Milwaukee, winning about 75% of the time. And when these two teams meet, the Brewers win about 75% of the time, no matter where they play. When you look at the way that these teams are hitting the baseball, and with the Brewers hitting righties at 248 in their last 10 games, the Reds hitting lefties at 269, well, both these pitchers are going to be vulnerable. I just think the Brewers are the better team. I'm going to take the Brewers in the first 5. For our next game, we go to Fenway Park in Boston, where the Yankees are visiting the Red Sox. Carlos Rodon on the bump for the visiting Yankees, while it's Cooper Criswell on the mound for the Red Sox. These teams sat out a short rain delay on Friday night, and the Yankees came out just swinging. They scored 2 runs in the first inning, but the thing is, boy, they could have scored a lot more. Rodon is a pitcher for the Yankees that, earlier this season, I didn't think he was really having the kind of season that the numbers were indicating. I figured that he would eventually pay the price, but instead what's actually happened is he's really reeled in those numbers and is pitching exceptional right now. Meanwhile, when we look at Criswell for the Red Sox, 4.12 ERA on the season, 7.42 over his last 3 starts. Meanwhile, Rodon, it's 2.84 over his last 3 starts, so a big edge for the lefty in this one. And the way the Red Sox hit left-handed pitching, though, 254 over their last 10. The Yankees, 232 versus righties, but I still think the Yankees just way too much. I'm going to take them in the first 5. For our next game, we go to Seattle, where the Mariners are taking on the Texas Rangers. George Kirby gets the ball here for the Mariners. It's Nate Eovaldi on the mound for the Rangers. Eovaldi's been in and out of the injured list, and George Kirby, well, this guy just has all the talent in the world. Just seems that sometimes he makes mistakes, and he usually pays for them because he is a young pitcher. Eovaldi has a 2.68 ERA on the season, 2.87 over his last 3 starts, while Kirby at 3.81 for the season, 2.0 over his last 3 starts. So Kirby, showing that kind of stuff that a lot of these Seattle pitchers are showing, but at the same time, his team doesn't get the wins and losses to show for it, because when he does make mistakes, he pays for them. Meanwhile, we look at, how these teams are hitting righties, and it's actually the Mariners who have been hitting right-handed pitchers a lot better recently, 244 to 212. But like I said, Kirby just seems to be the one more prone to make the mistake. I'll take the Rangers in the first 5 innings. For our next game, we go to Colorado, where the Rockies are taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates. Ty Blach on the mound for the Rockies, and it's Jared Jones on the mound for the Pirates. Last Sunday, we had Jones against the Cardinals, and he seemed to just really get into trouble early in that game. He was really unable to escape, getting into trouble, including walking in some runs. I think, when you're walking guys and you pitch it tight to the strike zone the way Jones does, a lot of it comes down to the interpretation of the umpire. So I'm not going to really hold that one all that much against him. But both these pitchers are certainly going in the wrong direction recently, with Jones at a 4.11 ERA in his last 3 starts and Block at 5.29. Look at the way these teams are hitting the baseball, and the Pirates are pounding lefties at 261. And while the Rockies are pounding lefties at 313, unfortunately for them, Jones is a righty, and against righties, the Rockies hitting just 211. The Rockies are generally a really good home team, but the thing is, these Pirates are just loose as a goose. I'm going to take them with Jones in the first 5. For our next game, we head to Dodger Stadium, where the Los Angeles Dodgers are taking on the Kansas City Royals. It's Yamamoto on the mound for the Dodgers, and it is Seth Lugo on the mound for the Royals. Lugo's been solid this season, but we're seeing a little bit of a deterioration as his 2.36 season ERA is ballooned to a 4.74 over his last 3 starts, while for Yamamoto, a 3 ERA for the season has gone down to a 2.50, including that masterpiece he painted against the New York Yankees. The Royals have not fared well traditionally against the Dodgers, but you have to remember, the Dodgers have been a playoff team and World Series contender every year, and the Royals have been kind of on the mend in recent years. We look at the way the Royals are hitting right-handed pitching, 255 through their last 10 games to 234 for the Dodgers, and meanwhile for the course of the season, 245 for the Royals and 244 for the Dodgers versus right-handed pitching. Of course, both these pitchers in this game are righties. I don't care what they're hitting against righties anyway, though, because I don't think either of them will be able to hit these pitchers. I like the under in the Dodgers-Royals for the first 5 innings. For our final game on today's Major League Baseball card, we head to Arizona, where the Diamondbacks are taking on the White Sox. It's hard to believe that the White Sox, who have just, under 20 wins for the entire season, are one of the best first 5 inning teams in baseball. In fact, they've won 9 of their last 10 first 5 innings. If you've bet the White Sox first 5 innings every single game this year, you are up major bank. And that's because the White Sox have played well over the first 5 innings. They have had more bullpen implosions than any other team out there. So we've been taking the White Sox plenty in these first 5 inning videos. We've been cashing big on them, even though they're not winning these games. Today, Eric Fede on the mound for the White Sox, a guy who's been victimized by the bullpen a bunch, but he's still not pitching at his best recently with a 4.24 ERA over his last 3 starts. Neither of these teams are hitting, the White Sox are not hitting all that well against righties, but the Arizona Diamondbacks are crushing righties and lefties, but no one's really crushing Fede. I got to say, all the values on the White Sox first 5 innings this year. I'm going to ride it till the wheels fall off. Our pick here is the White Sox first 5. Well, that wraps up today's Major League Baseball first 5 innings picks. Of course, we're back tomorrow with first 5 innings picks as well as we continue to trudge through Major League Baseball in the dog days of summer. So we wind up at football season. We'll be covering first halves all over again, along with all the other sports that come along in the fall. Of course, if you're looking for my best bets, the games I'm betting today, as well as best bets from the world's best handicappers, go to our website, PickDawgz.com, click on the Premium Picks tab. I also have a link that you can use in the description. And of course, use the discount code PICK. You'll get 15% off. If you're looking for PickDawgz merch like what I'm wearing, this zip up, this hat, or other merch that you see us wearing in the videos, just go to PickDawgz.com, click on the merch tab. Also, I've got a link in the description for that as well. This is Mitch. Thanks for joining me. Have an awesome day. Let's crush the books together, and I'll see you tomorrow.